Hi everyone and welcome to this video. A few of you have asked for some general videos on Shakespeare, his language and his stagecraft that could be applied to whatever Shakespeare play that you're studying. I know that some of you are doing King Lear, others are looking at Othello, and some of you are doing Romeo and Juliet. In this video, we're going to look at Shakespeare's language, and I'm going to give you some ways to make it easier to understand, but also some things that you can write about when talking about how Shakespeare uses language. As many of you are studying King Lear for this year's leaving, I'm going to take examples from that play, but what I go through will apply to all of Shakespeare's plays. So one of the most distracting and difficult things for young people coming to Shakespeare today is the language that he uses, and there are a few reasons for this. Firstly, there are words and spellings that have simply fallen out of usage and we are now unfamiliar with them. This makes reading Shakespeare more challenging because we have to work harder at it to pick up all the potential meanings. The more interesting aspect of why Shakespeare is daunting for some young people today, however, is the fact that it's written in verse. It's a type of poetry. When we read Shakespeare, it's important to remember that people in the 16th and 17th centuries didn't actually speak this way. They may have used those words, yes, but Shakespeare's language is crafted for a number of specific purposes. It's written in blank verse, in other words, iambic pentameter. Now this may seem difficult, but it's really not. All words are made up of syllables. So you have syllables in your name. For example, there are 2 syllables in Tobin. There's the to part and there is the bin part. So they are 2 syllables, to and bin. In primary school, we're encouraged to clap along to the syllables so that we can hear them. And that's not a bad idea, even at secondary level. So all words are made up of syllables. They are the internal rhythm within words themselves. In English, we naturally stress some syllables and not others. Take, for example, the word remark, as in, the student made a funny remark. There are 2 syllables here, 2 stresses. The first on re and the second on mark. English speakers usually stress the second syllable more than the first. To do it the other way around would be noticeable and a little odd, or it could even have an entirely different meaning, to remark a piece of work that you have already marked. We call a pair of syllables like this, with the first syllable unstressed and the second stressed, an iamb. If we look at a line of Shakespeare, it becomes a bit clearer. So a random selection from the play King Lear gives us this line from Oswald in Act 2, Scene 2. It pleased the king his master very late. We're going to underline the unstressed syllables and put the stressed syllables in bold to make it clearer. Here we can see the iambs more clearly. There's a very straightforward pattern, and when you exaggerate the reading of it a little, it has an almost sing-song quality to it. We call this type of line with 5 iambs, 5 pairs of syllables, iambic pentameter or blank verse. It pleased the king his master very late. So iambic pentameter or blank verse, pent meaning 5, like in pentagon or pentagram, and meter meaning measure. So now that we've seen the meter used, you're going to start noticing it throughout the play that you are studying. Sometimes a line of iambic pentameter is broken across 2 different speakers. For example, at the end of the play King Lear again, when Kent and Lear are speaking, we have the following exchange. Lear says, "Am I in France?" Kent replies, "In your own kingdom, sir." Although this piece of dialogue is 2 separate lines, together it would make up one line of iambic pentameter. For example, "Am I in France in your own kingdom, sir?" Shakespeare often does this to draw a connection between different characters, to show their closeness either in personal relationship or status. You notice as well that the mad characters, Edgar in disguise, Lear himself when he goes mad, and the fool, don't speak in iambic pentameter, and neither does Kent when he disguises himself as low-born. It was reserved only for the high-born characters in Shakespeare's plays. Writing an iambic pentameter was said to have made it easier for the actors to remember the lines. It often made it more entertaining for the audience to listen to, but it was not easy for Shakespeare to write like this. While not every line is exactly iambic pentameter, the vast majority is. Consider that Shakespeare had to write considering his overall plot, the characterization of each character, as well as counting the number of syllables in each line, and we may well forgive him for some of the confusion his lines cause. Consider again the line from King Lear that we saw a moment ago, and we're going to add to it the line that comes after it in the play. It pleased the king his master very late to strike at me. So this line comes from Act 2, Scene 2, when Oswald and Kent resume hostilities and Kent is put in stocks. Cornwall wants to know what Oswald has done to offend Kent, and Oswald replies that he has done nothing, that in fact King Lear had hit him and that Kent had tripped him up in the first place. Here is what Oswald is saying. It pleased King Lear, who was Kent's master until recently, to hit me. As we can see, this second part in white does not fit iambic pentameter, and so Shakespeare needs to do some revisions. The line in white is much clearer and much more straightforward than the one in yellow. He alters his word order, so his syntax, so as to keep the lines in iambic pentameter. It doesn't always make for the easiest of readings when looking at it on the page, but when in the theatre, and especially in the 16th and early 17th centuries, the effect of hearing the lines in iambic pentameter would have outweighed the confusion. In a similar way, another reason for difficulty for a modern audience comes from the highly visual nature of Shakespeare's language. If we consider the low levels of literacy in Shakespeare's day, as well as the fact that the playhouses, at the beginning of Shakespeare's career at least, were seen as a lower form of entertainment, then it's clear that much of the audience would not have been able to read or write. In order to entertain them then, it's crucial that they are given something through both the spectacle of the play, something that we call stagecraft, and there's another video on Shakespeare's stagecraft, but also through the language. To this end, we see that Shakespeare's language is rich with metaphor, simile, and imagery. We've seen in this video that the difficulties of Shakespeare's language comes from the fact that he's really writing in verse, and so he has to change the order of his words often to fit the meter. It's also a highly visual language, and some of the language he uses has simply fallen out of fashion and it's not something we're familiar with anymore. I hope that this has been useful for you in your study of Shakespeare. Please like, leave a comment and subscribe, and don't forget to watch out for more Shakespeare videos coming soon.